for a little intro. Gotta stare right into the microphone, or right into the camera, not into the microphone. It's on here.
Gotta go wide-eyed.
You know, that's definitely gonna be in the episode, Ian. Okay.
I can't unsee that. And you can't unsee anything either because you're staring into my soul.
The end of episode clips are gonna get wild for this episode. Anyway. Hello and welcome to Fall Through, your source for deep conversations about technology, software, and computing. I'm your host, Kris Brando, also known as Scriptable, and today we have our full panel back. First time in a long time, so this is going to be a really fun episode. We're going to be talking about how bad we are in tech at marketing the stuff that we build, how off we are in our predictions, especially around things like AI, blockchain, you all know the rest, and wherever else our conversation may lead us. As always, there will be extra content for our supporters, so if you're not a supporter already, head on over to fallthrough.fm/subscribe and sign up today. And if you're not following us on social media, give us a follow there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button. It really, really helps us out. And then also the subscribe button and notification bell, so you know when we ship episodes. And with that, let's get into the show. And then stuff plays, and music plays, and the slate happens. And then we're back. And I get to say, hello, viewer, listener, and welcome back to another episode. As I said, we got the whole panel here. And I feel like I should go from the person who has the least number of episodes to the most. So Dylan, how you been? We've been missing you.
You did zero math for that too, by the way. You knew we were to talk to.
He did the equivalent math as I did the last time I was on.
Which
I've been good, man. Living life. Family's doing well. Working, progressing, preparing for the holidays.
Yeah, we got that Thanksgiving, Christmas double whammy coming up soon.
Yeah, and I just got the email from my manager. Oh, by the way, you have X days of vacation left that you have to use before the end of the year.
So you'll be taking some time off, which means you'll have
because I'm not donating it back.
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, and Ian, how are you doing?
Can't complain. I'm doing.
I feel like this is like this is the second time in 3 episodes you've been on. It's like a whole new leaf of Ian.
I said I was back, and then I took another little break, and now I'm back.
You're back.
I don't know why I'm waving my arms, but I'm angry or happy or something.
I feel like the end of episode clips for this episode are just going to be a bunch of Ian doing Ian things, like waving his arms around and staring into the camera and
being a weirdie.
Yeah,
saying weirdie.
It's the sun. Weirdie.
It's the sun. Yeah.
That is a great clip. I love that clip so much.
I've never actually seen the clip.
Oh, you should watch the YouTube version. I have put it at the end, I think, on a couple of them. Because that's one of the one video ones I had. Speaking of clips and people saying nonsense, Matt, how are you doing today?
Perfect introduction. 10 out of 10, no notes. Doing great.
We're talking about your favorite topic, AI. Are you excited?
Yeah, of course. I'm literally talking to AI about this topic right now.
Oh God. Are you streaming this directly into Claude?
So I'm gonna literally
commentary.
I have Open Router open with Polaris Alpha, which people think is ChatGPT 5.1.
What is Polaris? Oh, the names of these things.
Is that the United Lounge?
That is the United Lounge. Yeah.
What are we talking about? I don't know. AI? Airplanes? I don't know what's going on.
You know how they just drop the random models on like public places with a code name and don't tell you what it is? No?
No.
OpenAI does this with all their models, like the new ones. They drop them on Open Router, which is like, do y'all know what Open Router is?
No, please explain.
I know Open Router.
Yeah, so Open Router is just like a place where you can route to different versions of AI models, LLMs. And yeah, OpenAI will just drop a new model. It won't say OpenAI, and it won't say, it'll have a code name, but people have done all these cool things where they like take the outputs and run them through a different model that classifies them and breaks out into a tree of like, these are closely related based on outputs. So people think Polaris Alpha is ChatGPT 5.1.
Man, this is a whole new level of like code naming and like trying to hide this. It reminds me of like the iPhone 4 when they basically wrapped it in an iPhone 3GS and were like, this isn't a special thing, and someone took the piece of it. It's like, hey, this is a new thing, and got leaked. Like now we're doing it with AI models. Well, I guess you got a field test. You can't just drop it without having field tested it, so that makes sense.
We have DNS for AI. What could go wrong?
US East 1 will crash, I guess.
We could do that without AI.
We can do that with just DNS, even though technically it was not DNS's fault that US East 1 crashed. Anyway, we're off to a great start. Okay, topic. Let's get into the topic. So yeah, I was thinking about this because I've started using AI a little bit more, and I've been like surprised and slightly annoyed. It says a lot of stuff. It's helpful, but you really have to know and understand what you're doing to make it very useful, which I feel like is the exact opposite of how AI is marketed. Especially like the agentic stuff or all of that. It's like you really got to have like an understanding of the space you're operating in order to like use it well. And I feel like we as an industry have been like, no, like you're going to be able to use AI, and like even people that have no idea how computers work or how programming languages work and don't know any will be able to like write entire apps, and you'll be able to vibe code your way through things. And it's not so much that that is not a laudable, is that the word I want? Yeah, laudable thing for us to want to do. But it's just like a really strange thing that we kind of put out into the universe when all of this stuff was first happening, right? That just jumped to, this is going to like destroy entire segments of society because people will not have jobs anymore. And it's going to be able to do all of the stuff on its own. And it's like, I feel like we all should have known better. And I feel like we all should have learned from like cryptocurrency and blockchain, because I think that technology had a similar thing where people saw it and they're like, oh, we're going to destroy, there's going to be no more money besides digital money, besides cryptocurrencies. And we're going to use this for all of our contracts and things. And I feel like that overshadowed the technology in a way that has in some ways like held it back and hindered it. In addition to like just the wild claims of like people are like, we got AGI in our basement. It's like, you don't have AGI in your basement. If you did, you'd be making much better decisions. Like you definitely don't have AGI. Like please stop saying you have AGI. But yeah, that's like kind of my thoughts over the last like week or two about this, and as I've like actually started using these tools now that AI is hitting the part of the adoption life cycle where I am sitting, which is the late adopter curmudgeons that are like, I don't need the new stuff. Turns out it is helpful, as everybody has been saying. So
I'm definitely also in the late adopter camp.
If you're just now getting into AI, are you a late adopter? I don't know if you are.
Well, there are lots of people that are
You're just an adopter.
that are all over the like. I use agentic whatever model, Claude or Copilot or whatever, and vibe code all day, every day. And I'm like, I've used it like 6 times and I decided it doesn't suck.
yeah. I mean, I still haven't used agentic stuff yet. Once again, I'm like dipping my toe into the AI pool and being like, do I like this?
I kind of liken it to the early days of Google when it paid to get really good at writing your query correctly. You get drastically different results depending on which keywords you put in which order, and you had to get good at writing Google searches. I feel like the agentic stuff is in that same realm right now. It can be very useful if you learn how to tell it what to do exactly correctly.
I mean, what is even adopting? Like, you say that you're using AI now. I feel like there's different tiers of using AI. There's like, I went on the web base and then I typed a question and AI gave a response. There's like automated coding.
Like knowledge, just because like knowledge atrophy is happening, I don't know if we're getting toward like Star Trek computer level stuff, right? It's like, yeah, we don't have to remember as much stuff. We can ask the computer more things, but I think seeing the computer as like an intelligent thing instead of just like another evolution of our referencing systems is like the problem. So I think I've heard like a lot of analogies. I think part of the reason I want to have this conversation too is because I keep hearing like people try and make analogies to what this is like. Like some of the ones I've heard are just like, oh, it's like, we've just invented the car, or it's like we're going from the horse to the car. And I'm like, that's not a like kind thing at all. Like it's not like a foundational change in the underlying technology of what we're using. It's just like we now have a much more advanced interface to our reference systems, which is really what it's kind of washing out to be. It's like LLMs are a very good interface to all of the stuff that we used to have to like build a GUI for or build a CLI for, and have to like think about all the different ways that someone might want to access something, which was just always not a great method of access because people will always want to ask the same question in different ways. And now we have an interface that allows us to do that. But instead of seeing that as that type of interface where like this thing can think, and I'm like, it's not what it's doing. And even if it sort of looks like what it's doing, it's also not very good at it because of like the hallucination problem. And I do think there was a lot of time wasted focusing on and having a lot of debates and arguments about hallucination when we could have been talking about all the other stuff that we could do with this technology.
The hallucination memes are pretty fun, though. Hey, ChatGPT, is this mushroom poisonous? No, it's fine. In the hospital. Sorry, yes, you're correct. That mushroom is poisonous.
Yeah, I feel like I'm still waiting for AI to become that like good interface. I don't think it really is yet. Like I'm imagining that interface as like what Apple Intelligence promised and never delivered, which maybe is coming, but maybe not. Where it just has access to like your context. You as a person is a context, and it can search and find and surface information.
Right.
And that will be useful. I'm looking forward to that. But right now it's so much work to get your information available to AI for it to even do something useful with.
Yeah. I guess that was kind of my point there too, is that like, instead of trying to be like, hey, the LLM is going to be the thing that answers all the questions, knows all the stuff. It's like we should be focusing on what's behind that LLM, the things that it's bringing together, and being able to easily gather and put that context in a way where you can expose it to the interface. A little bit like the idea behind GraphQL, where it's like you have all these different data sources behind that have all the different ways of storing it and accessing whatever, and then you have this like unified interface that you can use to query all of it. So it feels like, yeah, that's what we want. That's what LLMs would be good for, because they can translate what you are saying in prose or in English into a query of some sort against some other system. And like we're building those things now, right? That's what MCP is for, and a whole bunch of this other stuff. But it's like we're building that now, and these LLMs came out years ago, and it's like we could have been building this stuff years ago, but we're spending a lot of time and energy having conversations that ultimately did not matter, right? And I feel like we do this too much as an industry. I feel like we maybe it's because of the sci-fi, maybe it's because of something else, but we just jump to this like, oh, this is going to destroy the world. And it's like, that's not how it ever actually works, though. Like, we keep having that conversation, and it's like, but that's never...
I still think it might destroy the world.
Have you seen Terminator?
Very slowly. See, that's the exact thing. See, oh God, no, you're not going to nerd slate me. Go away.
All right, fine. Have you seen iRobot? Come on.
No. Have you seen the Avengers? Come on now.
Yeah.
iRobot, the book, was much more interesting for the subject matter than the movie was.
Wait, isn't the book called something else?
No, it's called iRobot, but the book is like 6 short stories, and they're all drastically different, and it's different ways that the three rules spiral out of control.
I don't know. To me, it's. I don't even know. I don't know if we'll ever get to AGI, singularity. I don't care. Whatever you want to call it. I don't know if we're ever going to get to those things. But what we have today is nowhere near it, right? Like, you can say, sure, this is wonderful and it's helpful. Like, my wife uses AI to help write product descriptions and email stuff, and like, it's great. It helps her become a better writer because her writing was never great, and that's self-admitted, right? She knows that her writing needs improvement. Fine. The same way I know that, like, I use it for reviewing and learning about things. I don't know everything about Illumos or Linux or whatever, but I can go query AI and say, hey, I'm seeing this behavior. Like, help me wrap my head around this thing. And I can customize it to be relevant to me. Or just last night, I told AI, only respond to me in Spanish, but put the English translation next to it. So that way I can understand. And then when I respond to you in Spanish, like, give me pointers of what I'm doing wrong and what I can improve and sound more like native or whatever. And it was a great experience, right? Getting the information in Spanish, replying back, great. I can't do that easily with like any other technology today, you know? That's a great thing. But it's nowhere near like Jarvis from Iron Man or something, right? It's nowhere near that where I can just say, hey, Jarvis, build the entire Iron Man suit now. And Jarvis just knows what that means, and it just goes out and does it. We're not there, you know?
Yeah. I think one of the big things is that people have forgotten that what the word fiction means. It's like, it's science fiction. It's like, it's not real. It's using a lot of like liberties. It's like, I think people think about it in a way where we can actually create it because it seems so close to what we actually have, right? In a way that they can understand, right? If you're like, especially if you look at like some sort of fantasy worlds, it's like, well, actually there's just like one small thing about like how chemistry works, and this is why magic is allowed, right? But like, that is not something that a lot of people are like in tune or in touch with in the same way they are with like technology. So they think like, oh yeah, we're like so close to having like the Star Trek computer. We're so close to having, you know, AI robots that can do all of this stuff.
I think for non-technical people, for Joe Average on the street, when you think about how far we've come in the last 10, 12 years from where we were to where we are today, it probably does seem to someone who isn't familiar with the underlying technology that we are almost there because we have come so far.
Yeah, I think that's also like the difference between where we are and where we would need to be for some of these things is like quite far. It's not a short distance. And I think people don't. It's easy to. That is a very long, like, appliance singing.
Mentally
sequence.
Closing that loop is hard.
I was like, why is what your washing machine or dryer or whatever just loves to sing for like 30 seconds straight. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yes. Like, I think the space between like where we are now and where AGI is, I think it's easy for us to like collapse in our minds. But I don't think it's like, in reality, I think it's like a whole, like, not even on the same like 10 orders of magnitude. Like, we are so far away from it, but people are like, no, we're so close because this thing kind of looks like it. We're like all pattern matching on it. And it's hard. Like, I sometimes find myself slipping into being like, oh, it feels like I'm talking to a person, but you're not talking to a person. You're using an interface. That interface is just very person-like at the end of the day, in a way that, you know, we're all not used to. I'm sure like in 20 years, LLMs are not going to feel like people because we are all used to talking to LLMs. In the same way, I imagine that like early like phone tree systems maybe sounded like humans to people because there was like a human talking and you're like hitting the keys and whatnot. And it's like, oh, it feels like talking to, until you can't find the thing that you want. And then it's...
And now we all just want to press 0 and talk to a person.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I'm reminded of like the text to adventure games, right? Where those before video games, like you would type in like "go west" and it would tell you what west looks like. And like I think humans really do have like the imagination to fill in a lot of gaps, even to make something feel real. I don't know exactly where I'm going with that, but I'm reminded of that. Like we can fill the gaps. So even if a chat bot, like a LLM, doesn't feel precisely human, which it definitely doesn't, like I feel like your brain kind of just fills that in, like smooths everything over.
Yeah. I mean, we as a species seek likeness. It's like when you see like, I don't know, like Jesus on toast or something, or you see like a face of someone you know in the clouds, right? We like to pattern match on things that we can recognize. So when things get close enough to what we can recognize, we kind of snap to it, which is like ultimately also why we keep doing that, like sci-fi, snapping to sci-fi, because it's like, oh, we've seen all of these movies that tell us that like they warned in the beginning, like, oh, this, you use this technology, let this technology free, and it's gonna like destroy everything or something like that. I think people are definitely much more scholars of sci-fi than they are of history, where it's like if you go back and you look at history, like the way that a lot of technologies, even like the world-changing technologies, developed was not in this like neat patterned line or this predictable way. Or even like a good way. Like I think too, even I mentioned earlier how some people were comparing AI to like the invention of the car. I think that's a very car revisionist historical perspective, because like car transportation is not good, right? Like trains have always been like a better form of transportation than cars by and large. And yet because we are in America, especially such a car-centric society, we see like the invention of a car as like this huge transportation revolution, when it was actually like not that big of a transportation revolution. It did help with some things, right? You know, you could individually get from point to point a whole lot easier for some time until like we invented highways and then got traffic. And now you can sit in traffic longer than you could feasibly take a train if we just built the train.
As the country dweller in the group, trains would not do. I contest the idea that trains are ideal transportation because there aren't branch lines to go to all the places that I need to go, and it would not be feasible to build and maintain them. There could be a train there could be a train that runs, say, from New Orleans to Baton Rouge and makes a stop here, but I would still need a car because the train doesn't go the places that I need to go.
Well, that's because we purposefully designed the whole system to be car-centric, right? It's like if you design even rural places, because like, what was it? Switzerland. Switzerland is a very rural country. Like their biggest cities are pretty small. Everything is very spread out. And they still have really good train service, even to like extremely remote spots, because they invested in that and they put the time and energy and effort into it. And it would be more expensive for us to do it initially, for sure. But I also think that we don't really think about how expensive roads are. Like roads are extremely costly infrastructure. And it's like, could we run a train system cheaper than that for a lot of that stuff? Or like build like, you know, biking systems or other forms of mobility? Like, I think we could. But I think, you know, the point I was making is that like cars are not at the end of the day like the be all end all technology, right? That's just like, this is the greatest form of transportation. But I think a lot of us think about that. And I think when we say it's like, oh, like the invention of the car, we want to like linearize history like that. And I think that's what so many people have been doing with AI. And it's the same thing they did like with blockchain. And I think one of the things we should probably learn from all of that is like, especially learn from blockchain, is that it really does hamper the technology at the end of the day. Like people are still using blockchain, but I don't think it's being utilized nearly as much as it otherwise could have been if we kind of let it spread out instead of trying to linearize its history way early on.
I always felt like with blockchain, it was the technology itself is very impressive. It's cool as hell. But there just aren't that many problems where the solution that you need is a distributed ledger. Like, I don't think that solution generalizes to all the things where everybody went and said, oh, we're doing X, but in blockchain for that whatever it was, 5-6 year period when it exploded, and everything was going to be crypto/blockchain, all the things.
But are you saying that it does generalize in AI?
No, kind of the same thing. It doesn't. The solution doesn't apply to everything, and I think it was more acute with blockchain because blockchain is a very specific thing at its core. It's a distributed ledger that doesn't solve all the problems, but everyone jumped on the hype train and was going to go build the next crypto blockchain X and become billionaires. And it just didn't pan out because that's not what blockchain does.
Well,
Right.
I do want to talk about that jump on the bandwagon thing totally. But that car analogy that came up before, I don't think the advancement of the car, like people say, oh, AI is like the car. It's like, okay, but then you ask them why and they can't explain it, right? If you probe for the next question, they can't actually follow up and tell you why. And then they just default to saying the car just changed everything. It's like, okay, but how? Because we had horse and carriage before, which was last branch transport that can go arbitrary places without some sort of predefined track, right? We had that. Was it the fastest? No, or obviously not. Like cars, was it always perfectly like waterproof and enclosed? Like no, cars have different features too. But if you look at a car and a horse, like there's a lot of similarities to how they transport. They can both go on a path or off a path. They can both transport people. Not like there is a likeness there versus like a train and a car are completely different modes of transportation. One's static rail and one's not, blah, blah, blah. So I just don't get the analogy there when someone's like, hey, AI is like the car. So how? And I'm not asking you all to answer this, but it's just I don't know what they really mean by that. I don't think they do. I think they just heard the stupid quotes that we keep repeating to ourselves back, from history. Like, if I asked my customer what they wanted, they say a faster horse. Ha 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 ha. Business. Like we keep just repeating these things like as if they mean something, but nobody's taking the time to reflect on it and think of what it actually means to them. They're just like regurgitating it, which brings me to like the bandwagon point that you were getting at, Dylan, which is like, you have all of these leaders, quote unquote leaders. I'm going to quote them again because I can't call them leaders. You have these quote unquote leaders at companies that are like, oh, there's this AI thing. I'm going to go do AI things too because there's money there. People are giving them money. I want money. And you just have all these leechers go after the same market. It's what they did with blockchain. Nobody actually cared about the implementation of blockchain and the problems it can solve. They just saw cash money and they were like, give me money too. I'm a blockchain company. It's like, dude, you make shoes. No, but they're blockchain shoes, dude. You step on the blockchain with me, right? Like it's so stupid. And we're doing the same thing with AI. Now all these companies are pivoting to put AI somewhere in their product. And like, to me, I understand the need to go where the money is. I totally understand that. Human nature, we want to go where the money is because the money is such an integral part of everyone's life and society. Got it. But like, what is your identity as a company? What are you? What's your product? What are you building? What's your vision? What is the thing that your company is doing? Because if you're so quick to pivot to AI, what was your foundation? You know what I mean? Like, what were you doing before? And like, if AI never came along, were you just going to die? Like what was going on? And that's the questions I like to be asking.
Yeah. Because I think like that's kind of my point of like, with blockchain specifically, where it's like blockchain is kind of locked into this like it is a distributed ledger, but that wasn't even the most interesting thing about blockchain at the end of the day. It's like the distributed system stuff is way more interesting. Like building a Byzantine fault tolerant system that, yes, it's kind of like Git, right? Like the really fundamentally amazing thing about Git isn't the version control system. It's the content addressable file system that it's built to be. And then you put a version control system on top of it. And like that's another technology that we didn't really explore the capabilities of content addressable file systems. Although we have branched out a little bit more, right? There's things like IPFS, but like in general, there's a lot more content addressing happening in the world than I think before we had Git. And I think for blockchain, that similar style thing would be Byzantine fault tolerant systems, which we do need in the world and should have spread out into the world because like you have a lot of computers now. and people build systems that have a lot of computers, and you have to have an adversarial model when you're building those things. But we just don't have the distributed systems skills built up as an industry to feasibly build Byzantine tolerant distributed systems, right? Systems that handle not just crashes, but bad actors within them. And like you sort of see that with like the zero trust movement that's like built up slowly but surely over here. But it's like, I think if we hadn't hype trained the crap out of blockchain, I think we would have reached a place where those different things would have intersected, and we would have wound up with like a much more robust technology at the end of the day, probably still called blockchain, but looking like a very different thing. And I feel like that's the same sort of thing that happened to blockchain is happening to AI now, where we're really condensing it down onto this one little path, and people keep trying to pull it back onto this one little path and linearize its history before it's even near the point where we could possibly do so. So it's like, I mean, as I said, like I see these LLMs as reference systems, as ways of interfacing with reference systems to find information or to do tasks and things like that. It's kind of like a digital librarian, an automated librarian in a way, more than like a super intelligent AGI system. And I think if we all thought about it a little bit more like that, it's like, yeah, the librarian doesn't know everything in every book in the library, but they do have the skills and ability to help you find what you're looking for and help you do the research, or say, hey, there's nothing in this library for you, but you can go look at this other library, right? And I don't think anybody's saying like librarians are, some sort of super intelligence because they have access to all of this knowledge. It's like, no, they just have the skills and ability to go find that knowledge, just like the AI systems do. And I think if you start looking at it from that perspective, and like a whole bunch of other perspectives, you open up the ability for us to evolve this technology in a way that's broadly useful instead of like narrowly useful.
That comparison definitely strikes a chord for me, as kind of the AIs, the LLMs are the natural language front end to all the information. You don't have to learn SQL to go query all your stuff. You can just speak or type in a mostly normal manner, and the LLM can translate that to the lower level lookups that need to happen to go find the information that you're after. And if we
see, I kind of think of LLMs in the way you're describing, but I also think of them as like really good lossy compression for the entire world's data, right? Yeah. Like very lossy, but like they do know a lot, right?
Yes.
Like,
do they know anything though, or do they kind of just reference a lot?
We can't get into a philosophical debate of what it means to know something, Matt.
I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, like does a zip file know what its files are? No, right? But it can still reproduce them, right? Like,
yeah, but there's that.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to branch so much, but yeah, that's like an algorithm that's deterministic, and then AI is like an algorithm that's non-deterministic. So you get to that branch. But I get what you're saying. Yeah,
but but that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like it's an interface, but it's also a form of like kind of advanced compression, because like there are a lot of weights, but they're storing a huge, tremendous amount of data in those weights. That's like, yeah, it's very, once again, it's a probabilistic. It's like a Bloom filter. You don't get deterministic answers out of it, but a lot of the time you don't need a deterministic answer. You need an answer that you can then run through something else that'll make it deterministic, right? You can check it against something else, or you can have it so that the system itself checks itself against a known source, right? So, but I think you're right in that aspect, Ian, where it is a compression system as well, like a very useful compression system if the things you built around it can tolerate that it's not going to be a lossless compression system. There will be losses, there will be fuzziness, there will be non-determinism in what you pull out from what you put in.
I feel like there are a lot of people that really want AI to allow them to skip that last step where you take the output and cross-check it against some other known system. They just want it to spit out the answer.
But that's why I was shaking my finger when Kris was saying the librarian thing, primarily to remember myself to go back to this point. The librarian example is great because it's not even just, it doesn't even just apply to librarians. It applies to any sort of interaction where you are referring to someone that has more breadth of knowledge and probably depth of knowledge than you do, probably. And you're looking for guidance and a recommendation. But it's not just like, hey, librarian, give me the exact book that I want to do X, Y, and Z. That'll never work, right? Because they, like you said, Kris, they don't know all of the information. And even so, they need to understand more from you before they could even give you a recommendation and blah, blah, blah. But the other part of that is that interaction is a two-way street, right? Whereas I go to the librarian and I say, hey, librarian, I'm looking for a book on, I don't know, the Third War or something, right? Or whatever. I'm looking at a book on watches because I love watches and I want to learn more about them. And as they ask you questions, you're reflecting and you're learning and you're understanding more about what you truly want. And at the end of that discussion, you might be led somewhere completely different just because you've changed along the way. And in AI, we often, like I think you were saying, Dylan, we want them to just give the answer. And we kind of just ignore the discussion part that changes us along the way. And I think that's a mistake, right? It's supposed to be a discussion. It's supposed to be a, hey, AI, tell me about this code. I want to do blah, 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 blah. And then it gives you an answer and then you kind of discuss back and you learn. But we're looking at it like, please give me an answer. I have more important things to do. My time is worth $5 million, but goodbye. And that's just not a good way to look at it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like what we were talking about in the previous episode about the difference between, like, you know, having a mindset of being on the journey instead of just wanting to get to the destination. I think that is something that a lot of tech people suffer from, is just like wanting to be at that destination, wanting to have the launch party, wanting to celebrate the 1.0, and not wanting to be in the process of building the thing that leads to the 1.0 and seeing that as the... No, I think one of the features too that, like, at least I haven't seen talked about a lot when it comes to LLMs specifically, is the whole aspect of like context, which is also, like, I think one of the fundamental reasons why people hate Siri so much is because Siri's context window is laughably small. So you can't ask it a series of questions and have it actually like understand what to do. It just kind of shunts it off to a web search, or like, you know, you can barely do stuff. Like sometimes it'll be like, oh, set my lights to this, actually set it to this. And it can like follow that loose chain, but not a whole lot. But like having a long context window, like one of the things that was helpful when I was like trying to not debug, but like fix my baking problems, was that I could just go back to the conversation and just like continue it. And at first, like, it's that emotional thing of feeling bad because it kind of feels like there's a person. It's like, I'm just leaving this person hanging, but it's like not a person. It's fine. So you just like continue the conversation though. And it's like, that's also really helpful because like, you don't have to like re-explain everything or reload that context. It just still has it. And that's just not something that I think a lot of people talk about. And I think that's like one of the big features that we should be focusing on having for AI systems, and especially large language models. Although, you know, all of them do now, so it's not like a big point. But like, especially for like voice assistants and things like that, they need to have better context management as well.
I mean, that's what we love about going to places that are familiar to us, right? Like when you go to your friend's house, or when you go to like a restaurant or a place and they know you, and they can like say, oh, hey, Matt, welcome back. Like last time you really liked this like soup or whatever. We have like a slightly different one that's kind of like that. Like we don't try it. That when you have context about things, it makes the whole experience better, and it makes it's more personable, right? And AI feels good when it has that context about you, especially if you turn on the settings that can like read your chat history. So like kind of quote unquote learns about you. That's kind of nice, because then if you had another chat and you want to reference something from a previous chat or whatever, it's just there. Like, oh, I remember you were writing Go or Rust or whatever. Like, yeah. Here's what you're doing. And it can just save going down a wrong path and save a couple prompts there. And it's kind of convenient, honestly. But it's nowhere near like AGI, Singularity, Jarvis++, whatever you want to call it, whatever that is, that feature.
Yeah, I also think like so much of the future thinking about this stuff suffers from under specification. Cause like the first thing anybody should ask when someone says we got AGI already, it's like, well, what is it? Like, what do you mean by those words? Like, what is an AGI? They're like, oh, it's a super intelligence. Okay, well, what is super intelligence? And they're like, well, it's that's usually when people peter out and they're like either get frustrated or just like but like I think that's like part of the problem as well, is that like it's not just that the thing that you're envisioning is so far out, which I think the thing that pops into people's heads is so far out, but that it's so underspecified that even if we did arrive at a point where we had it, I don't think people would recognize it because it wouldn't be like what they think about in their head, right? I think like if you watch videos about cars from like the 1920s and 30s and even 40s and somewhat into the 50s, like those futures of like a car-centric world are what we got, but they look nothing like what all of those videos were trying to, and those advertisements were trying to sell to us of like, look, everybody can get to where they want all nice. And they didn't talk about like traffic.
We're supposed to have flying cars by now.
No, that'd be such a disaster. That'd be
right?
That'd be awful. Yeah. If anything, the analogy people should be using for what AI is that AI is like airplanes. It's like making aircraft. Like that's an actual advancement in transportation, not cars.
The AGI thing reminded me. I was reading an article the other day talking about artificial intelligence in autonomous robots and talking about failure modes. So you have all these LLMs running in giant data centers, running on all these GPUs and doing all these calculations. And the failure rate of all those GPUs is low. It's 1%, but you still have to go swap out GPUs as they burn up over time. When you compare to an iRobot style or a Jarvis style, an actual autonomous robot that's doing all these same AI calculations, but the failure rate for the actual hardware in those robots would have to be near zero, because you can't go out and replace a GPU in your robot every 3 weeks. No one would go for that.
Yeah.
It's even beyond just the AI technology, the actual physical technology isn't there to have robot assistance. Like Rosie from the Jetsons is not going to exist for a long time.
Right. Because I think too, one of the ways in which a lot of this AI stuff breaks down is the way in which people don't consider the failure modes of it. Like I think about this like quite a bit of like the downfall of AI is not going to come from some like big protest happening or from like some government body striking them down. It's going to be likely from people getting fed up because some seemingly unrelated part of their life is getting really frustrating for them. Like I think a big way this happens is like with electricity consumption. I think the reason people don't think about this is because they don't know how the electrical grid works, both from like a physical perspective, but also a logistical perspective. So like I watched a short little video about this recently where it was like, and I had forgotten that this is how it works, where it's like when like each year or maybe it's quarter, I think it's yearly, they have this big auction where they basically kind of auction off the supply of energy that's going to be on the grid to all of the different entities that want to consume that power. And there's like a price that is paid. And in recent years, because data centers need so much electricity, they are willing to pay more, which means that like your local utility company has to pay more to get access to electricity to give to you. And they just pass that cost off to you. So now people's electric bills are like 15% higher. Not to mention all of the weird stuff that AI data centers tend to do to the grid itself, which can like slowly wear out your appliances. So it's like these smaller things that will continue to happen where it's like, okay, well, why is my electric bill now 50% higher than it used to be, even though I'm using less electricity? It's like, oh, because of data centers, because of all the stuff that we're building, because of the way that market works. And it's like, perhaps in the future that market will change. Perhaps those data centers will start getting powered by like mini nuclear systems or geothermal systems or something else. But it's like, those are the things that are much more of a risk to AI and its continued existence than like the other things I think people tend to think about. It's like the smallest of things is what winds up defeating the giant systems that we have. Like the smallest of pebbles in those gears just grind everything to a halt.
I was talking this morning about something very similar. They're building a new data center down here in the Shreveport area, which is North Louisiana. And one of the biggest warehouses in existence. Like it's this gigantic thing and it's just going to be racks and racks of AI servers. But they actually had to have the power company build them a dedicated power plant because the grid doesn't provide enough power to power all the machines that they're planning to put in this warehouse.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, we're spending all these resources building power plants that are then just for data centers and not for people. Like that's also not great. So there's so many angles along which so many of these things can fail. And I think we, to some degree, as an industry, lack an imagination about the failure modes of what we're doing. I think and that ties into the fact that we lack imagination as to what we could actually be doing with these technologies. It does seem like the future, probably, of a lot of these, especially LLMs, is going to be running them locally. I think that's going to be like the reality of how a lot of this works, because running them as a business does not seem like it seems too much like a commodity for it to be something that is going to be useful for people to run into the future, especially as like, you know, we get newer and newer models and people keep training models that they release into the open that you can just download and use yourself. And as you have more things like, you know, Mac computers where it's like, yeah, your GPU has access to all the same memory as your CPU and your NPU does, and now you can actually run models super fast locally. Obviously, they're not going to be as good, but as you add these other features to them, like it seems like the future of this is going to be more local, or maybe more mesh, or maybe something like smaller scale.
It does feel like something that will kind of self-commoditize as more people, like you said, as to hosting and providing AI as a service. More and more people are going to do that, which means the margins are going to get thinner and thinner, and people are going to want to get it for less and less. So it'll end up being a race to the bottom for that particular angle.
Yeah. Well, with that, any last thoughts on this topic before we move to unpopular opinions and panics and recovers? Oh, I have to pluralize that.
I mean, no last thoughts. Just keep an open mind with these things. Don't forget to use your own brain while you're using AI. And like, I don't know, don't just ride the wave and join the bandwagon. Like, critically think about these things for your own life.
Yeah, use it as a clever new form of input, not as the be all end all of the answers to the things that you're after.
Ian, do you have any last words?
Not really. I do think you'll get left behind if you don't at least know how to use these tools. Like they do speed things up.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd say just be wary of the hype train and everybody jumping on it. It's like the hype is never where the stuff winds up. We should learn from the past.
I will say, a year ago, I would kind of roll my eyes at the idea of these fringe businesses doing prompt engineering training. And now it's kind of become a thing where you need to learn how to talk to these AIs, which is, in effect, is prompt engineering. You learn the dialect and learn the tricks for how to give your AI the context that is going to lead to the information that you want. But I don't know, it felt like, hey, the future of AI is going to be for the people who click the advanced search on Google and know their expression language. Well, no one does that because it sucks. It's a pain in the ass to use. Whereas the
I still
AI,
use that
you
a
can
lot.
talk to it.
You would, Ian. You would. And with that, 2 unpopular opinions, or panics and recovers. Panic and recovers. Panic and recoveries. We'll figure out how to make that in plural. So who's got some unpops or some panic and recover to grace our wonderful viewers and listeners with? Dylan, you haven't been here forever, so you should have at least one.
I don't know. At the top of my mind right now is Helm is bad. I hate it.
There's nothing unpopular about that.
But
I've
everyone
never had
does
to
it,
use
so
and I'm happy.
it's an obfuscation layer where it insulates you from Kubernetes by giving you a different complex interface.
It's YAML for YAML.
Yeah, with
Let's go
squiggly
templating.
brackets in YAML for templating substitutions.
YAML plus Go templating doesn't sound fun to me. Ever.
No.
Either one individually doesn't sound pleasant.
Exactly.
Like, put them together. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. Okay, so Dylan, you've successfully given us an unpopular opinion.
You remember the Kubernetes hype? Did that end up where we thought it would go?
No.
No, but it didn't die either. Right? Like people did make long strides using Kubernetes in their companies.
I've been a Kubernetes curmudgeon for a long time. It's always felt too complicated for actually getting work done. Every time I've had to go directly interact with Kubernetes, it just felt like a yak shave.
Yeah. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's a tool. To me, it's a tool. I treat it that way. If something else came along that was marginally better for certain things, I'd use that.
Okay. Ian, do you have an unpop or panic recover?
I don't have any unpopular opinions. They're all perfect. This is probably a popular opinion, but if you are new to programming, you should not be using any kind of code completion. That is like, no, I just don't think you should. Like, at least give it 6 months at least. Like, or if you're going into a new programming language, like I've interacted with people recently that are like relatively new to the industry, and like they don't have the muscle memory to just write what they want. They have to go ask something to write it for them and then edit it, right? Like you need that muscle memory of like how to write like simple things.
Yeah, I'll grant that one, but I will push back as someone who was writing code in the days before IntelliSense and autocomplete was a thing. Actually having to go keep...
Let me rephrase. You should not be using AI autocomplete. You can use IntelliSense. That's fine. Like, I'm not gonna take that from them.
Yeah, having to keep the context of now I'm gonna show my age. The entirety of the Win32 API. At the time, it was like 270 APIs. Like, no, you can't do it. There were people that did do it for certain areas, and they were like working for Microsoft building Windows NT. But for normal development work, IntelliSense is a godsend because now you don't have to remember the thousands of things that are available in the standard library of your language of choice.
Yeah, there should be like a dumb AI autocomplete where it doesn't do too much for you.
I feel like that's just autocomplete. Like what?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that could be an interesting experience as like one tailored for learning instead of fast completion. Like, I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but like a little clippy. It's like, it looks like you're trying to open a file from your C drive. You're going to want to use the OS package, right?
Clippy on his little Vespa scooter.
It would be nice to have the ability to like give an API to some sort of like autocomplete system and be like, is this a good API for autocompleting? Is this going to be obnoxious for you? Like, let me know. All right. So that's an interesting unpop. Matt, do you have an unpop or a panic recover?
Yeah, I think so. This is probably not as unpopular in the sense of like people will probably agree with it, but I think the action is unpopular. We should be doing more writing and announcing our sort of like expertise in a sense, and I'll explain that. When you are like at work or with your friends or whatever, like you should be talking about the things you know and you're good at, so that's to spawn conversation. And you should be writing about these things to spawn these conversation and to put this information out there and to make it, better for people to contact you about things. Because there's oftentimes you're there and you're like, I know a certain thing, but since you didn't tell anybody you know a thing, people just assume that none of the expertise is around for that certain thing. So the conversation goes in a different direction. But if you like announced, hey, I'm a Kubernetes expert and I run a Kubernetes at home, then conversations can like come your way a little bit more. So that's my unpopular opinion. Like announce your expertise and write more. Obviously, you should be good at the thing you're announcing, but
well, yeah.
There's a prerequisite. Obviously, don't just be one of those LinkedIn people.
You didn't say that part. You just said we need to tell people we're good at things. That's what I'm going with.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And periodically, like refresh it. Because even if you told me once before that you're like a Kubernetes expert or something, 3 years from now I can forget, or you might drop off or get better or worse. You should just periodically just let people know like what you're capable of.
Circling back to the topic, isn't that what AIs do today? They just tell people they're good at things, whether they are or not.
Yeah, I mean, but where do they learn that from? People behavior, right? There's so much noise. I mean, we can talk about it more on break, but
yeah,
that's my unpopular opinion.
Okay. I have a panic and recover. So the panic part, is I think congestion pricing in New York City has been an obnoxious disaster. It's the panic part. Right. The recover is that I'm happy that we've implemented it. I just have a lot of qualms with the technology used to implement it, because the technology used is awful and cannot do the things that it needs to do properly. Like, for example, it seemingly does not have the ability to determine, like the rule is if you are in the grid, if you're in the space that is the central business district or whatever, that you do not get charged if you are just in it. You only get charged for driving into it, right? So if you cross 60th Street, or if you come from one of the bridges or tunnels into the island, right, into that bottom part of the island. This is not how the system works. The system does not just kind of track you at the edges. It will, if you like just appear, right? So let's say I like park my car in a garage. If I pull out of my garage and hit a sensor, it will just assume that I have entered the grid, even though I'm currently in the grid, which has led to a lot of frustration for people that should not be frustrated with this. Because like, say like, the people that work in buildings overnight, if they drive to work, they have to drive their car around the block sometime at midnight. So one of the sensors will pick them up and charge them at the lower rate. Otherwise, they'll have to pay the much higher rate because it does not recognize that that their car was already in the system. So I really like the idea and the concept, and I think we should have congestion pricing. And I also think it should probably be more because we have a lot of stuff to pay for and we need to reduce traffic in the city more. But this implementation has been like a disaster and it's very messy. And even the process of like being like, hey, this is obviously a BS charge. please take it off is like really obnoxious at the end of the day. And the fact that the system cannot keep track of all of the cars that are in the grid should have been brought up much earlier so that it could have been mitigated, or so that they could have adjusted the way that the law and the system works. Because now it's like not in compliance, and it's just very annoying, and I'm very annoyed by it. But that's my panic and recover.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by any of that. I mean, you're asking people to think. The whole point. This is the whole point of this episode, right? Like, people aren't thinking. So yeah,
it's because it's like, it's not even like the way, because technically, if you drive below 60th on either the West Side Highway or FDR Drive, and then you exit Manhattan, you will not get charged. But the way they do that isn't by like tracking to see if you turn onto a side street. No, that would require too many cameras. They just have a certain amount of time that they allow you to like pass through that area and pass by one of the exit cameras before they will just charge you. And they have assumed that you have left that you've entered the grid. And I'm like, this is so stupid. Like, this is so, like, we have plenty of computers. We can just store all this data and then analyze it and then figure out how to charge people. Like, this is not that difficult.
We had a similar thing here that they ended up turning off. So there's an elevated freeway between Baton Rouge and Lafayette that almost the entire thing is over a swamp. And for a long time, people treated it as a speed limitless West Texas highway. There'd be cars doing 100, 120. Well, they said, okay, we're going to enforce the speed limit by essentially, if you make it from this mile marker to this mile marker in less than 18 minutes, we're going to mail you a ticket. Because you were speeding, because physics. But what ended up happening is people would go 100 miles an hour until a half a mile before, or a mile before the end point, and then go 35 and create this ridiculous traffic jam because they were watching the clock and said, well, I can't get to this exit before 4:50, so I have to slow down. It backfired so spectacularly.
I also feel like it's a problem because, like, speeding tickets are issued to the driver, not to the owner of the car. So how are you going to be like, here's a ticket, and like, I wasn't even driving? Like, that's like Easy Pass used to do this in New York too, where they're like, oh, if you go between exits too quickly, we know that you were speeding, and that backfired a lot as well. And it's like, people keep trying to do this, and it's like, no, stop. This is a bad idea. Automatically mailing people speeding tickets. Although New York City also does that, and then they just like won't let you fight them, and it's a whole mess. They have some automated cameras that just dole out tickets, but
they're serving their purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it gets people to slow down. All right, but this brings us to the end of this episode of Fall Through, and we got a break. We gotta go to break. Can't not have break. It's a great little after show we got. So, any last words before we do an outro? We'll say bye to our viewers. Tell them to go to the next thing.
Bye, viewer.
All right. Well, thank you, full panel, for being here. It was a great time. Reminds me of back in January when we started this whole thing up. And thank you, viewer/listener, for joining us for this episode. How'd you think? What'd you think about that conversation? Did you agree with what we were saying? Do you disagree? Do you have your own comments you want to share with us? Let us know on social media, on Slack, and Zulip, and all of the places. This episode of Fall Through was hosted by Kris Brando with co-hosts Ian Westerlopshire, Matthew Sanabria, and Dylan Burke. Fall Through is produced by Kris Brando and Angelica Hill, and our beats are by Breakmaster Cylinder. Big success. We remember everything I had to say. Oh, I haven't said that many names in a while. Ooh. Okay, stopping.
I don't know why I'm waving my arms, but I'm angry or happy or something. Being a weirdie. An ASMR intro.
I can give you a potato chip chomp right into the mic.
Oh, God.
Oh, I liked that one.
We are a professional and serious podcast. That is what we are. Anyway,
Speak for yourself, but okay. Can we do an ASMR outro?
You know what I mean? Like I know things, I think.
And I was like,
Ding.
that's a good slogan.
Picturing Bob being like,
It's the sun.
Somebody that I used to go. Ding.
and done.
Nice.
We did it.
We did it.
It's the sun. Yeah.
Perfect introduction. 10 out of 10, no notes.
Goodbye.
Bye, viewer.